Hello, welcome. So glad everybody is here and just wanted to thank everybody for contributing to the surveys, the open-ended surveys for each investigators and patients and supporters. This is an extremely preliminary analysis, not formal by any means, but just combing through the data and picking up repetitive concepts. We had 58 investigators answering the investigator-specific survey and 24 patients and supporters replying to that open-ended survey, which was a free form. Both of them were free form narratives. So anything could be put in these fields. A wide variety, a wide spectrum of nationalities, geographical spread. You could see here the spread is very, it's skewed to rheumatology with others what represented. But one thing I would say is that this particular methodology, we're looking at each discrete concept as being important. So there's no frequency weighting on these results at this stage of the consensus building. Strong representation by adult, but very strong representation by the pediatric population, who care for pediatric population. In terms of patients, this is the spread of representation. Inclusion body myositis as a single disease was strongly represented. However, if we look at the inflammatory myositis diseases, if we look at them together, we could see that they were parallel or exceeded that of inclusion body myositis. But again, we're at the very beginning, a very open-ended stage of a methodology to understand community experience and their concerns and suggestions. So there's no frequency weighting on these results at all. So let's look at first what patients shared with us. There's a need for better information, a lot of optimistic adverts. Some patients are desperate for good news, but there's need for reliable information on this topic. The word bombed was used with information on the success, but when delving deeper, studies and small groups were where this information was coming from and what was really known about the long-term effects and what exactly is CAR-T and what does it do. Patients expressed serially a detailed desire for detailed understanding. Is it a cure or is it a treatment like rituximab and IVIG? There seems to be not enough data on this. There was the concern. It was discussed that there's a desire to know the story of CAR therapies in cancer, the risks, efficacy, and then how this relates possibly differently or the same in connective tissue diseases and myositis. So in terms of side effects, enough known about it to consider it safe, short-term, long-term side effects, very similar to the concerns that investigators had. Remission, how long? Is it painful? Can it affect organs? And it was voiced repeatedly about the ultimate costs, financial costs to patients. And there was several voicing of the toll, the financial toll on national financial costs and insurance programs, and advice that patients wanted to give to when discussing CAR-T. Clearly, you could see in the bold lettering, these are common sense, but there's enough studies actually to show that we don't do these things well. Respect, empathy, kindness, patience, the more information, the better. Be honest. So there's a fear, it sounds like, that they're being bombarded and we as investigators are being bombarded and being colored by this these being dazzled, over dazzled. Adopt a listening attitude, speak to a patient with respect, but at a level of content sharing for a 6-year-old to understand. Very detailed components of procedures were voiced as being absolutely needed. Why is it potentially better than conventional therapies? And how is efficacy and side effects? What does this mean in respect to the type of disorder a patient has? And what level of functional improvement might be achieved by this therapy? Patients should repeat information in their own words to ensure understanding, have it on paper so patient and loved ones have time to read it, and make sure that physicians are available. I'm going to go through these very quickly, but there was just tomes and tomes of input from investigators, and a lot of it I'm sure is going to come up in the upcoming talk. But generally, there's a pressure from the industry sector, but not enough really time to understand. It was expressed investigators and patients are caught in a whirlwind created by an industry competition, and the baseline data collection is uncertain that it's high enough quality, and we're banking on low trial safety data, but asking a lot of we're asking for high volume enrollment. Sites are being pressured to enroll that have limited or no experience, and that those are sites themselves saying that's us. We have little experience and we're being pressured. And how is this impacting enrollment such that there will be sufficient power that after making all of this investment, that we're really going to say anything. There's concern about publication bias right now, because we're so optimistic and dazzled, and the risk benefit ratio is extremely hard to evaluate, especially in patients that have not even experienced other treatments. There's a strong concern about sidelining, good word, effective, less expensive, more easily administered, possibly safer therapies. And it's hard to recruit patients for other promising research. And there's concern, again, echoing, patient pool getting diluted between multiple different companies and products. Is the end data really going to tell us much? Especially because these are different molecules, logistical impediments. A lot of this surrounds about labor division, budget division, collusion, collaboration with our oncology colleagues, realistic budget projection, because there's such an immense amount of setup time, administrative time, investigative time that does not seem to be covered in the actual costs. And in the end, are the costs of the trial actually going to be sufficiently covered? And a big issue is hospital administration with 10 to 14 days specialized hospital stay, for example, in a bone marrow unit. And that limits access for patients displaying patients with oncological diseases that have a known calculated benefit based on a well-defined oncological profile. The safety and risk concerns are the common ones that we've seen, that I'm sure are going to be voiced today. Again, in CTD, higher propensity for infection, variable malignancies, and induction of autoimmune, alloimmune responses like we see with checkpoint inhibitors, and the poor characterization of antigens. Could muscle inadvertently become a targeted tissue? The very important one to highlight here is there's a lot of concern around patient vulnerability during the interval washout period, and the waiting on manufacturing of cells. Patient could become unstable, and particularly in myositis, who are prone to opportunistic infections, higher risk for those. There's a concern again for exacerbation of muscle damage mediated by CD18 cytotoxic T lymphocytes and secondary malignancies in susceptible hosts, as we know. Exclusion criteria concerns are extensive, and defining what is active disease, and concern for several populations within the myositis group as being well represented, and the disease heterogeneity being an issue with being able to build inclusion criteria and response, and ultimately repeatedly echoed were that these patients have other therapeutic options. Have we really exhausted them? And who are the patients that really need this when we don't have well-established treatment guidance that's more uniform? And we lack a biogenetic profile predictability that's available for oncology patients for selection. So there seems to be a voicing that a lot of work needs to be done. Thank you very much. And I'm really looking forward to these talks and discussions.